Okay, so if I showed you a picture of this device, your first thought would probably be, what sci-fi movie is this from?
Mm.
It has this very distinct look, a glowing sort of violet tube wrapped in these metallic rings. It looks like it should be powering a spaceship.
It absolutely has that 22nd century feel to it. It doesn't look like something you'd find sitting in a lab in, well, today.
Right. But it is. And the reality is a lot more serious. This isn't a movie prop. It's a prototype for a high-power microwave weapon,
Hmm.
an HPM. And we're not just talking about a theory here or some paper. This is real hardware. It's been built. It's been tested.
That's really the core of it. We've known about HPMs for a long time, the basic physics, that's not new. But the packaging, the
Yeah.
form factor, that's what's changed. This specific device, the TPG-1000Cs, it comes from a team at the Northwestern Institute of Nuclear Technology in Sheen.
And their big claim is that they've solved the mobility problem. They've also been very explicit about what it's for. The source material we're looking at points directly at low Earth orbit constellations. They even name SpaceX's Starlink.
Yeah, they do.
So the mission for this deep dive is clear. We need to unpack how they're getting 20 gigawatts of power into something you can fit on a truck, why that power level is so important, and what this all means for this new era of gray zone warfare. Because disabling a satellite without blowing it up, that just changes all the rules.
It changes the entire calculus. You're moving away from what we call kinetic warfare, actually hitting something, to electronic warfare. And that's much, much harder to prove.
So let's start with the engineer, because the numbers here are they're wild. The headline number is 20 gigawatts of power output. Now, I feel like I have a decent grasp of energy specs, but 20 gigawatts that's grid level power. The Hoover Dam is what, about 2 gigawatts?
About to, yeah, running at full capacity.
So how are they getting 10 Hoover Dams worth of power out of something that's supposed to be mobile? Am I missing something here?
No, the number's right. But the key is distinguishing between continuous power and pulsed power. The Hoover Dam makes 2 gigawatts all day, every day, this weapon. It doesn't do that. It's a pulsed system. The best analogy is probably a camera flash versus a flashlight.
Right, okay. A flashlight is a steady beam. The flash is one huge burst of light.
Exactly. It's a massive energy dump in a fraction of a second. So the TPG-1000Cs is basically a huge bank of capacitors. It stores up energy and then releases it all in a nanosecond burst. So for that tiny, tiny slice of time, the peak power hits 20 gigawatts. It's an electromagnetic tsunami.
Okay, that makes sense. But then that raises the next question. The report says the estimated threshold to fry a satellite like Starlink is only about 1 gigawatt. So if you only need 1, why build a machine that can do 20? That feels like overkill.
It does, but you have to account for the journey. You're not firing this in a vacuum. You're firing it from the ground, through the thickest part of the atmosphere, all the way up to low Earth orbit. That's hundreds of kilometers. And the atmosphere just eats microwave energy. It weakens the beam. That's called attenuation.
And the beam itself spreads out, right? It's not a perfect laser pointer.
Not at all. It diverges. So, if you start with 1 gigawatt on the ground, by the time it gets to the satellite, you might only be delivering a fraction of that power to the actual target. By starting with 20, Wang Gang's team is, well, they're basically brute forcing the physics. They're making sure that even after all that power loss, what hits the satellite is still way over that kill threshold.
So it's less like a sniper rifle and more like a fire hose. You just want to guarantee that whatever you're pointing at goes down.
Precisely. In a military context, you need reliability. You don't want to just make a satellite reboot. You want to cause permanent damage. 20 gigawatts gives you that assurance.
Okay, but this gets us to the real innovation here, which is the size. Historically, a 20 gigawatt capacitor bank meant you were building a whole facility, not putting it on wheels. The sources say older prototypes were like 10 meters long, weighed over 10 tons.
Yeah, that's a heavy haul. And the main reason for that size has always been insulation. When you're dealing with that much voltage, the electricity wants to arc. It wants to jump between components or to the casing. And traditionally, to stop that, you just needed space. You needed big air gaps. Air is a terrible insulator, so you need a lot of it. And that makes the whole thing huge.
This is where the secret sauce comes in. The report keeps mentioning this material, Middle 7131.
This is the breakthrough. It's the key to the whole miniaturization process. Middle 7131 is a type of synthetic ester fluid. You see it in high-end power transformers, but here they're using it as a liquid insulator with a really high energy density.
So instead of air gaps, they're submerging the key parts of the weapon in this liquid.
That's it, exactly. The liquid has a much, much higher dielectric strength than air, so you can pack all those high-voltage components right next to each other without them arsing. It suppresses that electrical breakdown.
It's like packing a suitcase. If you have to wrap every shirt in bubble wrap, you need a huge bag. But if you can just fold them tightly, you can fit it all in a carry-on.
That's a perfect analogy, and you can see the results in the numbers. The TPG 1000Cs is down to 4 meters long and weighs just 5 tons. They literally cut the size and weight in half.
5 tons.
Uh-huh.
I mean, in military terms, that's nothing. A standard truck can handle that. You could put it on a ship.
You could fly it in a cargo plane. Or, and this is the key point in the report, you can mount it on a mobile platform. Think about the strategy there. A fixed site can be tracked by satellites. The enemy knows where it is, they can plan around it. But if your satellite killer is on a truck that can park in a different field every night, it's a completely different problem.
It's a shell game. You have no idea where the threat is coming from. But let me just push on that for a second. Hitting a satellite moving at, 17,000 miles per hour from a truck? I mean, the precision required seems insane. Can you really get that kind of stability?
It's a fair question. The tracking system would have to be incredibly advanced. But microwave weapons have a bit of an advantage here over, say, a laser. A laser has to hit and stay on one tiny spot to do damage. A microwave beam spreads out into a cone. You don't have to hit a specific chip on the satellite, you just have to get the satellite inside that cone of energy. The kill zone is bigger, which makes the tracking requirements just a little more forgiving.
Okay, that makes sense. It's an area of effect weapon, not a scalpel. Now, there's another number here that really jumped out at me. These kinds of pulse systems usually have massive overheating problems. It's like one shot and then you wait an hour for it to cool down. But they claim the TPG 1000Cs can fire continuously for up to a minute.
Which, in the world of high-power physics, is an eternity.
Right. They're talking about 200,000 pulses in that time.
Yeah, and this goes back to that middle 713D1 fluid again. It's not just an insulator, it's also a coolant. It's circulating, it's pulling heat away from the core components. And that's what allows for sustained fire. And sustained is the key word. If you're trying to take out a whole train of Starlink satellites passing overhead, one shot isn't enough. You need to be able to paint that whole section of the sky with energy. Firing for a full minute lets you do that.
So let's talk about the target. The researchers who are cited in these reports at Nanjing University, they are very focused on Starlink.
Right.
Why? Is it just the sheer number of satellites?
The numbers are part of it, for sure. But the bigger issue is the strategic role we saw Starlink play in the Ukraine conflict. That was a massive wake-up call for militaries around the world. Russia has very capable electronic warfare systems, jammers, anti-satellite weapons, and yet they really struggled to take down Ukraine's Starlink-based communications.
Because it's a mesh network. It's not one giant target you can hit.
Exactly. It's distributed. If you shoot down one Starlink satellite with a missile, which costs a fortune, by the way, you create a huge debris field, and SpaceX just reroutes the traffic through the next satellite over. It's almost pointless. The Nanjing researchers basically concluded that to fight a mega constellation, you need a weapon that's cheap to fire and can hit many targets quickly.
And a microwave weapon. I mean, it runs on electricity. The cost per shot is almost nothing compared to a missile.
It's negligible. And if you have a system on a truck that can fire for a minute, recharge, and be ready to go again, you now have a plausible way to actually degrade a swarm. You could disable dozens of them in a single engagement.
And it's clear the U.S. is paying close attention. The source quotes General Chance Saltzman, the chief of space operations. He calls this a grave threat. That's not light language.
No, not at all. Saltzman is very direct. The U.S. Space Force calls these counter-space weapons, and they're looking at the whole range. But the concern with this HPM system isn't just that it works, it's that it fills a dangerous gap on the escalation ladder.
What do you mean by gap?
Well, just think about your options right now. If a satellite is being used against you, what can you do? You can try to jam its signal, which is temporary. It's annoying, but it's reversible.
Wow.
Or you can launch a missile and blow it to pieces.
Which is a clear act of war.
It's a clear act of war, and it creates a nightmare scenario with debris. If you shatter a satellite in low Earth orbit, that cloud of shrapnel can stay up there for decades, threatening everything else in that orbit. It denies that space to everyone, including you. It's a scorched Earth move.
So you're creating mutually assured destruction for that entire orbital plane.
Exactly. So you have this huge gap. You have temporary annoyance on one end and catastrophic, undeniable attack on the other. There's been nothing in between. The TPG-1000C sits right in that gap. It's what's called a soft kill.
Can you explain that a bit more? What does a soft kill actually look like?
From the outside, it looks like nothing happened. The satellite is still there. It's physically intact, solar panels and everything. But on the inside, the delicate electronics, the processors, the amplifiers are fried. That intense microwave pulse induces a voltage spike that just melts the microscopic circuits on the silicon chips.
So the satellite just goes dark.
It becomes a dead brick in orbit. And this is where we get to the most strategically dangerous part of this whole thing. Plausible deniability.
Right. If I fire a missile, everyone sees it. NORAD tracks the launch. There's a smoking gun.
But if a satellite suddenly dies over a remote part of the ocean, what caused it? Was it a solar flare? A micrometeoroid? Just a random component failure? Or was it a silent, invisible pulse from a ship or a truck hundreds of miles away?
You might never know for sure.
It would be incredibly difficult to prove. And if you can't prove it, how do you justify a response? It allows an adversary to degrade your space assets without crossing that clear red line into open warfare. It's the ultimate gray zone weapon.
That's a chilling thought. It lowers the barrier to entry for an attack. If you think you can get away with it, you're much more likely to try.
It absolutely lowers the threshold. It makes silent warfare in space a reality. We might already be in a situation where satellites are being targeted and we'd never know. This device, because it's mobile and powerful, basically weaponizes that ambiguity.
And the report also mentions that this kind of tech could be put on other satellites. So you could have hunter-killer satellites.
That's the next logical step. A space-based platform eliminates the whole atmospheric problem we talked about. You wouldn't need 20 gigawatts to fire from one orbit to another. You could use much less power. The TPG-1000Cs is the proof of concept that the core technology, the cooling, the insulation, the miniaturization is ready for that leap.
So if we pull back to the big picture here, we've gone from a sci-fi looking photo to realizing that the next space conflict, it's not going to be explosions and lasers. It's going to be invisible pulses of energy.
I think it represents a real maturation of military space doctrine. We're moving out of the experimental phase, where these were giant one-off machines. We're now entering the deployment phase. The engineering problems are being solved.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? We're so used to seeing military power as tanks and ships, things you can count. But the next major conflict could be decided by who can quietly turn off the other side's eyes in the sky.
That's a perfect way to put it, because if you can blind your enemy, their tanks and ships become far less effective. And if you can do it from a truck that just drives away and disappears, you have a huge asymmetric advantage.
The silent war in orbit. I guess we'll have to keep watching for it, assuming our sensors are still working, of course.
Let's hope so.
Thanks for breaking this down with us. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.